everybody, and welcome to today's very special Q&A Cafe. We have two of our amazing team members from our SDK team here to talk to you all about tenant refreshes in SAP Business ByDesign. We're your hosts today. We're going to be Evrim Fowler and Doug Hammer. As always, I'm Katherine. I'll be your facilitator today. Just a friendly reminder to please type any questions that you may have into the questions and chat box. Because this is going to be recorded, everyone will remain on mute. And then we'll answer questions towards the end of the webinar. Please don't forget to join us as well next week. That's going to be Wednesday, October the 6th. That's for our next Q&A Cafe, which is going to be your mobile dashboard and reports on the go in SAP Business One. So without further ado, I will hand it over to Doug and Evrim.
Thank you, Katherine. Yeah, so, today we're going to talk about some of the tools and some of the techniques we use in doing custom development. As Katherine mentioned, my name is Doug Hammer. I am the manager of our SAP Cloud Development team as it relates to SAP Business ByDesign, SAP Analytics, and SAP Integration Services. When we were asked if we would participate in this, we jumped on this opportunity. We haven't done this in a while, so we're excited to be here with you all today. And I want to just kind of talk about some of the things that we do here in our team and how we help your businesses run great and help our customers to use the systems and the tools of SAP to the full benefit. Our team does focus on implementing innovative and what I would say very creative in some cases solutions that can fill gaps between what SAP Standard by Design and the implementation will do and where you get from there. While SAP by Design will fulfill most of your requirements, there's always inevitably something that's either customer specific, that you have something that SAP just hadn't thought about, or that is industry specific, where there's something in your industry and the way that you are processing your data that the standard out-of-the-box solution won't work. And that's where we come in. We come in, we get lots of requests. Some of the different kinds of requests that we do get are things like modifying the form templates in SAP by Design, whether that's be adding logos or completely changing the look and feel of the template and how it runs, and also doing grouping and sorting in different ways. We are asked to customize and build reports, which include also data sources. In doing that, we sometimes also have to create our own custom data source and mingle those data sources with the standard data sources, and then we're able to put that out for reporting. Some of the other things that we do are custom work centers. So we will develop a specific add-on which builds new functionality into ByDesign, and that adds new screens, totally new functionality with the data being saved in the database on the back end. We can also modify standard SAP screens. We do this, although functionality in that area is a little limited on SAP side. But there are definitely cases where we can go in and make some changes there to make it work better for your company. And one of the big things that we work with are integrations, various kinds of integrations. We use standard SAP web services. We'll build our own custom web services that brings data and exposes it from objects in SAP where standard services just don't exist. We will also create these in a way that can be called. Sometimes we can also, from our Cloud Studio, connect to other services to build integrations. So there's all kinds of functionality there that we do. Some of the tools that we work with are the Adobe Lifecycle Designer, and we use that for doing all of our form development, form modifications. We use what's called SOAP UI and Postman. Those are tools that help us to work with web services. They can show us the WSDLs, which are the web service definition language files. They help us to see what the data from SAP actually looks like when it gets exported. As I mentioned, the Cloud Studio, sometimes it's called the SDK. That's where we're writing code that's using SAP's proprietary language to either create data stores, or to create logic and build enhancements inside of SAP. And then there are the Cloud Studio repository is another tool that we use. It's part of the SDK, and it helps us to see what all the data structures of core SAP look like. We use something called Notepad++, which is just a basic text editor. It helps us to read XML files and text files that we're either importing or exporting from ByDesign. And we use the SAP Business ByDesign API Hub. And I've got Evrim with me here. He's on my team. He was going to get into discussing web services here in a couple of minutes, and he will go over and show you what the API Business Hub looks like and how to use it. We also develop Excel enhancements, sometimes either importing or exporting data from ByDesign. We use that as a tool to help that. We also can do VBA coding and also C# coding when needed for some of these exports once data comes out of ByDesign, or if you have some specific process that you need to follow before you load data in or do some kind of validation of data, we do all of that with those tools. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and let Evrim introduce himself and continue on with the presentation.
Thank you, Doug. Hello, everybody. So my name is Evrim Fowler, and I am a solution and development consultant here at VistaVu Solutions. I spend the vast majority of my time dealing with a lot of the technical related problems within the ByDesign space. So a lot of the topics that Doug just covered, just to go over them again, we help with topics from SDK development, form template modifications, and web service integrations. And that'll be kind of what we're focusing on today here. So even though a lot of the work we do and we get it can be generalized beneath the same categories as far as form template work, customizations, building own custom work centers. Each customer does have their own unique problems and need to be solved differently in order for their business to run great and smoothly. And so for this instance, we're going to kind of I'm going to go through a little demo together with everyone here and kind of walk through how to create a web service scenario and go through every single step. And basically that'll kind of help any kind of scenario where a customer wants to export data to an external application, such as an analytics tool or a data warehouse. And so today we'll be kind of diving into our little mock problem. Will be kind of a sales order business object, and we're going to run through that and go through a read or a query. And then another developer on the other end can do whatever else they want with it. They can use an analytics tool. They can integrate ByDesign with an e-commerce system, things of that nature. So without further ado, I'm going to share my screen here and we'll walk through all of the steps. And that way we can arm you guys just so you can be dangerous enough to poke around and look at some WSDL files and web services and get the most out of the ByDesign system. Okay. All right. So here we have the, just by default, when you log in the ByDesign system, just the home screen. The first thing you want to make sure that you do for your users and for yourself is you're going to want to assign the appropriate work center, and that would be the application user management. Within here, the first thing that you'll want to do before anything else is create a communication system. And so let's see here. So on the third column here, you'll see communication systems. You'll navigate over here. And on this view list, you're going to select the new button. And you're going to want to give it a unique ID in this ID field. And so we can call it something just generic right here. The host name, you're going to want to be the URL of the system that you're working in. So we can just go ahead and copy and paste this right here. And typically you're going to exclude this first part. For system access type, this will be a mandatory field. You only have one option, select that as internet. And although these next fields are optional, it is kind of nice to fill them out just in case people need to go back to you for any questions for how you configured it. We actually don't need to put that there, but you put your phone number, fax, internal comment, just a descriptive paragraph or sentence just describing what this is for. So for our sake, so just be for a Q&A demo. And then lastly, you're going to want to add a row here for the system instances. And then this will also need to be a unique ID. So we can go ahead and just enter something similar here. And then for the application protocol here, let's see. You're going to want to choose option 6, so the HTTP. And Doug, if you'd like to jump in and speak, I've only worked with the HTTP one before. So a good question that might come up is, what are the differences or other scenarios you might use these other application protocols? For all that we've done so far in our purposes, I've purely used this one, but how often do these other ones get used, I guess, is a good question.
Yeah, very rarely. Yeah, very rarely. It's mostly just the HTTP calls.
All right, and then with that, that completes all those steps. We go ahead and save and close. And then you can refresh this here. And then you should be able to see your communication system show up. So we have this one right here that we just created. And so a little information on the communication systems. It represents an external system, which you can be used for application integration. You can create and edit the communication systems as we just saw, and that's in order to exchange business documents electronically. That's kind of the definition and purpose of it. Once this has been created, and you see this kind of here in your view, step 1's been completed, but next you'll need to create a communication scenario. And this view here, what this allows you to do is it allows you to view and configure prepackaged communication scenarios, and you can create and configure your own communication scenario, which is what we're going to do right now. So you want to go ahead and select new, give it an appropriate name that's unique, and descriptive to your purpose. So for our scenario here, we're going to be looking at sales orders and reading information from there. So I'm just going to put query sales order. And we might have this title already, so I'm just append demo at the end here, just so we don't run into any duplicate issues. Next, you're going to add an operation. This is a good point to kind of segue into one of our tools that we use that Doug referenced earlier in the beginning. A very helpful one that I personally have bookmarked is this SAP Business ByDesign API Business Hub. This will contain all web services that are available in your system. And it's a good way with a little more friendly UI to go through and kind of examine all these APIs, read information, look at sample requests so that you can fill them out appropriately without running into any kind of errors. And then, so for this one, I kind of did some, due diligence beforehand, and I already know the name of what I want to look for. So I'm going to type in query sales order. And here, hold on 1 second. Okay, so we can see query sales order pop up here. And the reason why I navigate over here is this is kind of the best way to, when you're looking at this this list, to find the service that you want. Otherwise, I mean, you got a list of 325 here, so it's ultimately just to save time. So we're just going to filter it through the service name. Let's see, we'll do the query sales order, and this is why it's helpful to have this here. It's probably something like this. There we are. So once you found your service, you just want to select the indicator to add the operation. And select OK. You can see it update here. Just review everything, make sure it's accurate. Once it is, you can go ahead and hit save. And now we've effectively created this communication scenario. The next step is you want to create a communication arrangement. What SAP has done kind of for us here is this option, new configuration, will lead us right into that. So there's two ways you can go there. You can go back out here and navigate to communication arrangement. It's all kind of bundled together. And we're going to do it this way. This is kind of more fast if you know what you're doing, but it'd be helpful to kind of see this screen and talk a little about this as well. So after we've saved that, we're going to go back out to this list and talk a little bit communication arrangement. So this is kind of where you tie in everything you've created so far. So you have your communication system that you created, and you have your communication scenario, and you're going to kind of tie them together and create this arrangement to put everything in at once. So we'd hit new here. And then you're going to search for the scenario that you just created. So we had titled it Query Sales Order Demo, one with the hyphen up here. We're going to select Next. Now we're going to select the system instance ID we had just created. Okay, it'll be the by design. And then we hit Next. And a lot of these default options, you're just going to leave as is. There's typically only one option anyway. The only one that you will change that I recommend is the authentication method. You want to change that from the one provided over to user ID and password. And then the user ID is kind of populated automatically, but we will kind of add the credentials just to kind of make sure we have the right password. And then I would just enter something in unique and secure. And once we have that kind of set up, go to next, review everything, make sure it looks okay, hit finish. Okay, we'll go ahead and close out of this, and then we'll refresh so that we can see our new arrangement, and just make sure that it's active. Okay, so this is our new web service and communication arrangement. The next step that we're going to want to do in order to examine this this web service further is we're going to want to get the grab the WSDL file. In order to do that, you want to go into there. So you'd want to hit edit from here, navigate over to technical data, and then let's see here. Then once you get to the technical data, you can see here it gets a little confusing. A new option or button pops up called Edit Advanced Settings. This is important because this is the only area where you can see the WSDL file. From here, you're going to select Download WSDL. We'll give that a second to download. And then let's see here. And on my other screen right now, I'm just saving this and renaming it to something better than _3. And I'm going to put it in an appropriate folder. This is just, it's user preference. Just keep yourself organized. I like to group things with web services, whatever the purpose may be. And then once we drop that in there, then we'll go ahead and open the WSDL file and show you how to use SOAP UI. Okay. So now that's done. Cancel out of here. So the next tool, one that Doug mentioned, is SOAP UI, and this is especially helpful for WSDL projects. And so we already have it open right here. This is kind of just a blank slate. What you want to do is create a new SOAP project. So we're going to walk through that together. This little SOAP button right here will create a new SOAP project. Give it a project name, demo, query sales order. And for the initial WSDL, you're just going to navigate to where you save this information. We'll just quickly go to where we have it. So we have this query sales order WSDL. We can open it here. Alrighty, so on this left-hand side in our workspace, it's kind of what the UI calls it. You can see this WSDL file, and by default, it'll have, there's a little bit of a learning curve to use this. So just to kind of save you some headache, typically with what it opens on by default, you can see there's 2 bindings. Where it goes is where I would recommend working out of. So you have the 2 options here. So we're going to start in binding SOAP 12 and find by elements. And then we have a sample request. And this is kind of what the system looks at for when you're trying to query and find a selection of sales orders. And as you can see, a better way to kind of demonstrate this visually is to collapse. You can kind of see we have different criteria to search by. So you can search by buyer party ID, buyer ID, by name, ID, you have dates. There's several options down here. One of the biggest learning curves when using this, for the sake of the demo, I'm going to copy and paste a request I already filtered through and works properly. But it is important to kind of talk about and go through this step here as far as preparing the request, because if you don't get this exactly right, then you will run into errors. So you can see this is just to demonstrate everything that it can contain. What I recommend doing is before you even open this request, kind of have an idea of what you want to search by. So for me, it's going to be by identification. So I start collapsing all of these and I just delete all the ones I do not need. And you can see there's an optional tag, and the tag, the way it works, it's from top to bottom. So it's optional, and the one right beneath it. And this is especially where our other tool comes in to hand, and it really saves us a lot of time, is if we navigate back over to this API Business Hub, you'll see here underneath the read more, they actually provide some sample requests, and it's kind of how we all learn it as well. It's a lot of trial and error, but it gives you, see, this is the entire block they have, and when you contrast that with all of this, there's a lot of deleting and trimming you need to do, and values need to get right as well. So we'll kind of use this as our North Star and type in values. And for the sake of the demonstration, I'm just going to copy and paste one that we spent some time preparing. And I'll talk a little more to it once it's pasted in here. So, we fast forwarded. We deleted all the selection by et ceteras that we do not need. The values that I have entered was the inclusion exclusion code, I for include. Interval boundary type code is 1. I got that from the API example. And then this lower boundary ID, this will be what you enter for your sales order ID. So if we navigate back over to our system and we go to our sales orders, we have a bunch in here, and if you want to search and test and poke around, you just grab any one of these IDs and you can see more data about what the Swizzle web service retrieves when you plug in this ID, provided your request is working properly. So now that we have this down to what we think would work, the next step is the authorization that we helped create in the web service configuration. So you navigate over here, add new authorization, and the type will be basic. Username, just to reiterate, I would go back here to see this information, and user ID would be this right here. So we're just going to copy and paste for simplicity. Password is the one that you created in the step previously. And then to kind of enter it, you just hit this this play symbol here. So we're going to go ahead and hit this little symbol, and we can see it's processing over here. So on the right-hand side of our workspace, you can see the response. And we can tell it's successful because right off the bat, we can see that it's giving us a long list and a lot of details from the sales order. And so this contains a whole bunch of stuff. You have a lot of information from the general and header level, as well as many details on line items as well. So if you were looking for something in particular, whatever the need may be, you can filter through this list and see if it captures it. If you're curious, does this sales order capture the payment terms? We need this for another software. You can filter through that and search. And if it doesn't, then you can play around with what I learned the other day is you can have parts in the request here, and you can add codes to include even more detail or exclude some detail. Or you might not have the web service right. And so this is where a lot of the trial and error comes into play. And this is really the meat and bones of it. You have your response on the left side, the request on the left-hand side, response on the right. And then usually what we provide is we'll send over the payload or the request to a third-party developer to fulfill their needs. So whatever it may be that they need to get done. And then we do have some time here. We're about at the top of the half hour for some questions and answers. So I encourage anyone, if they have any kind of questions or anything at all, just please feel free to speak up, and we're happy to help.
Again, as I mentioned, if you have any questions or comments for Doug or Evrim or our team, please don't hesitate to reach out. I just want to say a massive, massive thank you to Doug and Evrim for a fantastic webinar. This has been a really great time. We really appreciate you and all of the insights. Please don't forget to join us next week. That's going to be our mobile dashboards on the go in SAP Business One on October 6th. And we look forward to seeing you all again soon. Thanks again, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Have a nice day.
Bye.